Steven Universe and all associated images are property of Cartoon Network, Rebekah Sugar, and any and all other respective owners. I don't know them all. All footage in this video has been used for the purpose of critique parody under fair use. Please support the official release. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I've done analyses before, but this one's going to be a little less speculative and open to interpretation than what I've done in the past. Primarily, I'm going to be collecting information from the show and putting it in a context to define once and for all what gems are using real-life technical terminology and science. I'm going to be breaking this video up into 4 segments to do this most effectively. First, I'll be talking about the gemstone itself, defining what it is. Next, I'll talk about the gem's mind, then the gem's body, the part that actually interacts with the world around it. And finally, I'll summarize what gems are, using the terminology defined in the other 3 segments. We know for a fact that the gemstone is the gem, that it's the only part of them that's actually them, that it's the only part of them that actually physically exists, at least all the time. It is, you could say, the core of their being. We know that a gem's gemstone is created by injecting something into the surface of host planets so that that something can absorb surrounding materials to create the gemstone itself. It's never specifically said anywhere, but we know for a fact that that something is a liquid. You may not have picked up on this since the most in-depth description that we ever got of the substance from the gems themselves was from Amethyst in the How Are Gems Made short, where she simply referred to it as junk. But if you pay attention to scenes from the kindergarten, we can see that there is a liquid pooling around many of the broken injectors there. What seems to happen is that this liquid is the part of the gemstone that contains all of the personality data, information, and programming that will later come to be stored on the gemstone, and that it hardens into a gemstone by absorbing minerals from the surrounding soil. And yes, I said data and information. We know for a fact that the personality and even appearance of the gem is stored on the gemstone in the form of information, the same way that information is stored on a hard drive. Gems also possess some sort of infinite energy, as they don't have to take in any energy from the environment around them and are capable of living forever. It makes sense that this perpetual energy source is located in the gemstone as well, otherwise it would just disappear when a gem is poofed, which wouldn't really be beneficial. And I have speculated as to what form of energy source that could be in my video, which questions how it was possible for Steven to be able to breathe in space. You can check out that video if you're curious. That brings us to the second segment, the gem's mind. We know based on information in Guide to the Crystal Gems that a gem is their gemstone because the gemstone is where all of the information that makes them who they are is stored. They don't exist because the gemstone exists, they exist because the information stored on the gemstone exists. That means that the gemstone is the gem's true body as well as its mind, explaining why damaged gems share similar but yet also show distinct symptoms even if the damage is relatively the same. Brain damage, even to the same part of the brain, rarely presents itself the same way from person to person, which means that the reason that we see physical manifestations of damage to the gemstone when a gem's gemstone is damaged is because the information stored on the gemstone is interrupted. This also explains why shattered gems are so single-minded, because they don't have complete information. There isn't enough information left on them to create a working mind. We also know that for some reason, shattering a gemstone completely irreparably damages the information stored on it, that putting the gemstone back together doesn't actually bring the gem back to life, that their mind is permanently destroyed if the gemstone is ever broken completely. We also know that despite the fact that gems seem to be living beings, they're not organisms. They're not beings that arose in nature. Even a life form made of something other than the carbon that we're made from, say silicon for example, that evolved in nature would still be an organism. It would still be organic, and yet Pearl specifically states that gems are not organic. This, combined with the fact that gems have been said to be made of stored information, tells us that the gemstone itself, the mind of a gem, is a computer, an AI. A sentient AI, but an AI nonetheless. And also tells us that in one way or another, gems as we know them today are artificial in nature. And if you'll excuse the one bit of speculation in this video, this is why I think that all gems have to be made of roughly the same combination of elements rather than what they're named for, as only certain elements can be used to store information like a computer. Finally, the gemstone, the mind, and the true body of a gem doesn't seem to have any way of interacting with the world around it as is. We know that a gem can choose to regenerate faster than Pearl did in Steven the Sword Fighter. We see Amethyst do it all the time. It just so happened that Pearl was a perfectionist and took longer than the typical gem to decide what her new form would be. This tells us that Pearl probably could have reformed with the exact same design she had before she was poofed if she had really needed to, and yet when Steven came under attack by the Hollow Pearl, Pearl still didn't reform. This suggests that gems are not aware of what's going on around them when they're in the gemstone state. The exception seems to be Lapis Lazuli in her mirror. She was able to observe the world around her through the mirror itself. That's only because the mirror was acting as some sort of peripheral to her gem. hence why gems need holographic bodies. We know for a fact that they're holographic, and we know for a fact that they're holograms with mass. Both have been stated in canon material multiple times. A gem's body has a framework at its core upon which it can build virtually any details it wants within limits of its own color scheme, so long as its size remains consistent with the size of that framework. Otherwise, that gem's form will be unstable, much like Amethyst's oversized form in Reformed. And knowing that there is information stored on the gemstone, information that makes up who the gem is, we can reason that that information dictates the details present in the gem's form, the details that are built upon that framework when the gem reforms, again after being poofed. We also know from canon evidence, as well as statements by the crew, that the gems don't just mimic the appearance of a humanoid creature, they actually simulate the function of a humanoid creature almost perfectly. There are certain organ systems that they leave out of their default form, such as a digestive system, since their gem doesn't actually have a way to absorb nutrients from food anyway. But that doesn't mean that they can't create within themselves a digestive tract if they want to, and simulate one perfectly the next time that they reform. This means that they're not just some shell of light. There's actual organs, bones, muscles, all of that inside their bodies. It just only exists when the gemstone is projecting it like a hologram. When the gemstone stops projecting it, it just becomes regular light and disperses. That's why we see an explosion every time a gem poofs. That's the light rushing away and air being displaced by the fact that something was there and now suddenly isn't. And believe it or not, this is actually real science. Scientists just recently managed to use new technologies to coax light particles into behaving as if they have mass. If this technology progresses far enough, theoretically we should be able to create holograms that are as solid and realistic as the gems themselves, by coaxing light particles into mimicking complex systems. So at the end of the day, gems are rocks, but they're rocks capable of storing information complex enough to make up artificial intelligence. Those rocks are incapable of interacting with the world around them, but they have the ability to project a simulated humanoid body with real mass that can allow them to do so. And yet, because that body is only real when it's being projected, if harm comes to the body, but not the gem itself, the gem is fine. But if the gem itself is destroyed, the information on it is irreparably damaged, and that gem is effectively dead. Most importantly, though, to defining what gems are is defining what they're not, and they're certainly not magical. Everything about gems, from the basics to their specific abilities, are all explainable using science and scientific theory. Yes, even things like Lapis's hydrokinesis and Rose's ability to grow plants rapidly and program them to assist her in battle are technically possible using science. They're just beyond our abilities right now. And if you pay attention to every single time the gems have mentioned magic in relation to their abilities, it's pretty clear that they're only using a term bestowed upon them by ancient humans, that ancient humans interpreted their abilities as magic and labeled it as such, that it's not really magic at all, but science. Hence why I choose to approach concepts introduced in the show using logic and reason. At the end of the day, though, gems may well be artificial intelligence. They may well be effectively machines, but that doesn't make them any less alive than you and me. They're aware of their own existence and the fact that it can come to an end. They have emotions. Emotions that are as complex as ours. Calling them artificial intelligence doesn't invalidate them as people. Because at the end of the day, what's most important when talking about gems is to remember that they are people. Regardless of what Rose said to Greg and We Need to Talk, she is a person, just as much as I am, or you are. Which is one of the reasons I love this show so much. It doesn't just show diversity in the human characters, it shows diversity in the forms of life that it portrays overall. Sorry, I got a little preachy there at the end. Anywho, guys, what did you think of this analysis video? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I know if you follow my theories, you probably heard a lot of this stuff from me before. I have gone over most, if not all of this, in my previous videos, so at the end of the day, this analysis really did feel like me collecting and reiterating a lot of the stuff that I've said about gems before. The show's actually done a really good job of making it clear what exactly gems are. You just kind of have to look for it all and piece it all together. If you liked the video, or you just like my content in general, I urge you to check out my Patreon page. I'll leave a link to it in the description down below. And check out the possible rewards, keeping in mind that if you don't see anything you like, you can always contact me and try to work out a reward that suits you better. Together, I think we can really grow this channel and make it into something awesome. More awesome than it already is anyway. But most importantly, guys, thank you for watching.